Hello, welcome to Guided, helping you navigate your divine journey. I'm your host, Jodi Reynosa, and with me today, James Ring, Super Soldier. He's also the host of Super Soldier Talk. James, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you, Jodi. Thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. I've been excited to have you on. I've been watching your show for a couple years now, and it has been fascinating, so intriguing, the guests that you've had on.
Yeah, certainly I've been doing this at least since 2010. I've been doing videos on YouTube before that, but it didn't become Super Soldier Talk until right around 2010. And it was just going to be just a few. I was going to bring in some other super soldiers and experiencers because so many people. Well, back at that time, there was really a blackout of information on it, and I was sharing my experiences, and people were contacting me, and I decided to make a forum so that people can share their experiences because we were being heckled a lot. When I first posted my video, roughly around 2008, the comments were just, I would say about 95% were negative. People just laughing at me, making fun of me, say, oh, haha, this is not true. You're crazy. And then going over the years, we bring in other experiencers. We're all saying the same thing. And now I haven't really kept track of how many people I've interviewed. I would say over 50, maybe 100. And so now there's a problem here where if there's anyone who's trying to do a controlled narrative or controlling the narrative, it's not going to work because there's a bunch of us united in our maybe not everything we have to say because we all have different unique experiences, but certainly it brings some validity to what we're saying, although we still don't really have the proof, which is, I guess, is what modern science is requiring, or a court of law, but we do have the court of the public opinion, and that's where what we're doing. Even you are participating in that as well.
Absolutely. I think there's quite a lot of validity, though. I mean, just like you were saying, us coming together, sharing our experiences. And for those of you who go to my Facebook page, you'll see that James and I we met at the Biomedical 5D conference in Las Vegas. And that was so fun to actually finally meet you in person. And we shared a little bit about James' journey. And before I get into that and have him delve into that, I kind of want to go over his bio because it is so fascinating. It's really intriguing. So let me just go into that real quick. So James Ring is a meditation practitioner, researcher, author, and video producer. Under different alias and timelines, has spent a total cumulative of 330 years in the SSP, so Secret Space Program, including 75 years on Mars as a super soldier in the Nazi military contractor Kruger, a colonel in upper management and logistics at the MCC, that's Mars Colony Corporation, where he went by the name Derrick Reinhold and worked with Peter the Insider. And there's also interviews with Peter the Insider on Super Soldier Talk. So many of you can check that out. And also one of the amazing things, now it talks about how James is a video producer, and that is because he actually produced this amazing documentary. I was talking before the show about how I'm halfway through it. It's amazing. It's like one of the most comprehensive documentaries I've ever watched on all the way from Saint Germain, from the Freemasons, how it was infiltrated by the Illuminati, all the way through, basically how the United States became United States Inc. and how we are slaves and not sovereign beings because of that. I mean, it's amazing, James. So kudos to you on that. So you've worked with Peter the Insider. You've also been a subject of my labs, so military labs, and also MK Ultra. You've been 10 years at Monarch, MK Ultra, like I just said, my lab facility, 10 years at a Nazi. Now, help me pronounce this. Abotawa extermination prison camp?
Abatava.
Abatava. Okay, thank you.
It's a gulag.
Okay. And an alternate reality in which the Nazis won World War II. Now, there is an interesting Netflix series called Man in the High Tower. Have you seen that yet?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now those of you who have not seen it, that's where actually the Nazis won World War II, and the whole series talks about that very fascinating timeline that unfolds. And that's, to me, is disclosure right there. I mean, that's pretty much soft disclosure.
It was, Philip K. Dick. He was he never even finished that series, The Man in the High Castle. So if you get through is it on Netflix? I thought it was on Amazon. I
Oh,
think
maybe it
Prime.
is Amazon Prime. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So if you get through that series, I highly recommend that you don't even bother watching the last season. It's going to be disappointing. But your imagination anyway. But we can actually discuss about the Nazi alternative reality. So it's a lot different what's being portrayed in that video.
Okay, yeah, let's get into that. And then you went through so much trauma through these programs. I mean, as a youngin, you were actually put in a cage. You went through, and that you've talked about on your interviews, and that was to fragment the psyche, and that goes into the different altars for different missions and things of that nature. So you have a BS degree in business administration and finance. It says after being frustrated with the lies you were told about the banking system, you authored the book and documentary, Change is on the Horizon. And that's what I was talking about, everyone. And which became a 3-hour documentary covering a variety of topics, delving into banking, finance, constitutional law, and NESARA. We're all familiar, many of us, about NESARA, and many of us are waiting for that. So, which is the National Economic Security and Reformation Act. So super interesting. I want to just delve right into all of this. Let me get to some of the questions in the outline that I had for you, because we have a lot to talk about. So let me go to the outline that I prepared for you. So let's go into your journey of when all of this started. And from the Facebook that we did in Las Vegas, how did you even start this journey? You said it was because of a friend who was going through some difficult times, and you discovered he was a super soldier. So take us from there.
Yeah, sure. Circa 2005, back in the when Yahoo chats were still around, I would sometimes hang out in the Yahoo Christian chat, and another individual was in there. Her name is Nate, and he had a lot of, because he was he was in school and he was having some issues in school, rage issues, and he told me he had super psychic abilities. Now I was already coming from a Christian background. I'm like, well, this is what in church they tell us this is demonic. So I started just like investigating people out there that had super psychic abilities, just curious to see maybe if I can figure out what the heck happened to Nate. And I came across David Icke's website, where he had an article about Andy Perot, who was one of these Montauk survivors who had these superhuman abilities. He could manifest out of thin air on the Montauk chair, and super strength, and he was taken to underground bases where they would train him by Nazis. And so I was just said, I was just joking with Nate. I said, hey, Nate, maybe these abilities that you have, maybe you were part of some government mind control project and being experimented upon. And as soon as I said that, like these altars started coming out, and he was telling me he was taking to underground bases, and the doctors that worked on him were Grays.
Wow.
Or really Dr. Gray, but so the conversation about that is in my book, so you can read about that.
Yeah, and that's Lone Wolf, everyone.
Yeah, so about half the content of that book is that conversation that I had with Nate back in the day, but he said a lot of bizarre stuff going up to roughly around I guess March of 2005 is the last time I really talked to him. He told me, he's saying that they were deleting his memories, that he activated my psychic abilities, that I could do everything that he could do, and that I was one of the supremes, one of the most powerful beings in the universe, and that he was Lucifer in his past life, and that we were fighting, and that's what caused the canyons, like the Grand Canyon.
Wow. What did you think of all this when he was saying this?
Well, I don't want to let it get to my ego. I'm like, well, I'm not going to let myself believe that he didn't say I was God. He just said one of these supreme beings, and he referred to me as you are. And later on I can explain how this all connected, but right around after that, he told me all this. I started being followed around in the stores. They're taking photos. I'm waking up. I've always had really bad sleeping issues. I would sleep on a couch in the not in my bed because I just couldn't sleep in my bed at that point. I was sleeping in a sleeping bag, and when I wake up, I would have these claw marks going down my shoulder. I would have needle marks, laser cuts. I'd scoop mark take out of my ear, cuts in my mouth, and there's a cut that goes all the way like around here. And I got tons of photos. I had
I saw some of those photos, by the way, everyone.
I had skin pulled back underneath my pinky fingernail, some black colored, looked like a rod. I'm not going to say an implant, but it looked like a black splinter that was spherical or anyway, not spherical. It's shaped like a rod. Okay. So what else? Yeah, laser cuts, and I was getting these things on it. Initially, it was like once a week, twice a week. Then it started to be daily. Then it started 2 times a day. Then it was like the worst time was like 7 times in a day.
Oh my gosh.
So they were doing a lot of stuff to me back then. And then I started seeing lights show up like orbs at night, papers moving around, and yeah. So and I would hear like dolphin like sounds in the kitchen late at night. I'm like, oh, what? Okay. Yeah. So
As a Christian, like growing up as a Christian, would you like pray, or would you like, what would you do at that point? What?
Well, when I was a kid, I mean, I had a lot of really bad PTSD about going to sleep at night. I always felt like there was something in my room trying to get me.
Yeah.
Sometimes I would sleep under my bed or in my closet. And that became an issue later on. And I also had a lot of OCD issues. I just didn't want people to look at my skin. It took a long time to work over that, work that out, me. And I had some anorexia issues. My height was stunted. I was only like 5 foot tall by the time I was 21. And yeah, so as far as like these issues are concerned, as being a Christian, I mean, I was baptized. I was Southern Baptist. Went to church every Sunday. But it got to the point where I was falling asleep in church every Sunday, and I'm like, well, maybe there's something more here. And then that's when I started, and I started to question things. In particular, there are certain questions in my religious dogma that they don't answer in church. Like, for instance, what happens if someone who hasn't heard the gospel, where do they go when they die? Like, let's just say some tribal region, and the answer was, well, God will provide. And well, that's not a very good answer, because that means you don't know. So, but there's other questions like, well, what happens? What if the being born again means reincarnation? And then I started looking into the Council of Nicaea 321 or I think it's 323 AD, in which Emperor Constantine and a group of about 300 religious clerks decided that there's only heaven and hell, and then that the early Christian church, the Essenes, who believed in reincarnation, that their dogma would not be incorporated, or at least most of it be cleared out. And then later on throughout the years, more and more the chapters were edited out. Even the original King James Version of the Bible, 1611, that was changed in, I think, the 1780s. That's the King James Version that you see in all the Christian shops. That's the 1780 version. The 1611 is really difficult to read. That English was like, yeah, but there were some books in there that were edited out. Mm-hmm. So over the years, the more and more the religion thing has been evolving. Now, so a lot of that was making me question, and I was just getting bored of just going to church. And I said, well, you know what? Maybe I'll just meditate and try to come up with try to tap into my own higher self. And then I started getting visions of Jesus, and Archangel Michael appeared to me. Didn't tell me anything. I just saw them. I was astral traveling, and then everything kind of just shut down because I got so scared. And and that's when I met Nathan, after all that stuff was going on. So let's see here. Where should I take this next? Nate goes missing around March. The last message I got from Nathan was that he's holding a power cord in some kind of underground base, and he's behind a force field, and they are trying to delete every part of his essence, and that I won't see him anymore, and then he's bleeding, and so at that point, yeah.
Was
So
that a vision, James, that you saw of him, or was that
no, he was messaging me directly on Yahoo
Oh,
Messenger.
okay.
And so a month after that, I had I would say a nervous breakdown, but I started to get all these paralysis symptoms, and they took me to the hospital. They couldn't figure out what's wrong with me, so I was in the hospital for like 6 weeks.
Oh, wow.
And then after they got released, nobody wanted to hear about Nathan. Nobody wanted to hear about me being needled, and I was being needled all the time.
Did
Continuous.
anything happen in the hospital when you were there for 6 weeks that you
Um,
remember?
No, just typical brainwash. I'm not brain. I'm just whatever the American Psychiatric Association thinks they want. I mean, they couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. They diagnosed me with psychosis, NOS,
Mm,
which is
okay.
are you familiar
Yeah.
with the diagnostic code?
Yeah.
They had to do something for the insurance, but yeah. So I wasn't schizo. I wasn't bipolar or um, I wouldn't even consider myself MPD, which is multiple personality disorder. So they really, but I do believe I'm suffering from PTSD because I went to get some biofeedback done for, because I had some like concentration issues in college. So I had that done, and the protocol, the only protocol that was assisting me was the PTSD protocol. So, I think if I kept doing that, it would have helped. But anyway, I want to stay on topic here. So where were we?
Yeah, with Nate.
He goes missing. Okay, so about a year later, I start to get brave enough to investigate again. So we're off around 2006. I decide to just start Googling his name, and actually this time I got a hit. He was posting poems about killing women and being some kind of beast on a poetry website.
Wow.
So I reached out, I contacted him and said, "Hey, Nate, what happened? Where'd you go?" And his girlfriend wrote me back saying, "Nate doesn't know who you are." And I said, "Well, I mean, I've got 150 pages of conversation that I saved." And so at that point, the girlfriend told me that she was waking up at night with glass in her back and cuts, and Nate was not in bed. She said she went down into his basement and found bottles of embryos labeled Nathan Wilder. And she said that she feels like she's in a trance. Anyway, I don't know if she's making this up or not, because she could say whatever she wanted to say, but she did say that Nate didn't want to talk to you, and that he doesn't trust you. He says, and she said that Nate wants to start the New World Order, and he's hanging out with other kids just like himself that are telekinetic. And he was roughly, I guess, 19 or 20 at this point. So let's see here. What happens next? So I pulled away from Nathan for, I mean, over the years, I try to reach out. He never wanted to communicate with me again after that. So I guess let's move forward to rough around 2010.
It almost feels like there's some type of link, though, that you feel like there's this connection. It's like, did you feel worried about him? Because it sounds like
Yeah,
you just keep
I'll tell you
pursuing.
about I'll tell you about the connection.
Yeah.
I spent 43 years at Montauk, and Nate's cage was next to mine.
Oh,
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't say I was
okay.
next to him for 43 years, but there might have been a 2 or 3 year period, because they would keep me roughly from the age of 7 to 9. Then they would re-age me.
Yeah,
So I don't know. Anyway,
that explains it. Yeah, I see.
uh, and Nate, well, at least this is what Peter the Insider said. The connection is with Nate is that Peter. Monarch Solutions is operate controlled by Paul Serene,
Mm-hmm.
and his top aide assistant in there was Beth Wilder.
Mm-hmm.
She was a mole to infiltrate the organization to try to shut it down. So Nate was her nephew.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
Interesting.
yeah. So that's at least the information relayed to me about the connection of all that. But
Okay.
and I had some more information about Nate. I can go into the story later on. But let's move forward to 2010. I came across Adam Zipanzik, and he's also in the book too. Adam never really wanted. I mean, he's never really come forward publicly on my show. I mean, he shared some information, but I don't blame him. He just wants to live a normal life, and he's happily married now. So I'm really happy for him, and I'm glad he's found his place. But Adam was in my team on. We were in the Alpha Squad 45, Alpha Squad 45. And so he was AKA Dreadnought. I was AKA Sabretooth, Agent Sabretooth. And I even found another guy on my team, Bloodstreak, and he's in prison right now, unfortunately.
Oh, do you contact him at all or stay in touch?
It's been a long time. I lost touch with him. I don't know the details, but yeah, his story's in my book too.
Okay.
I actually did interview him in person. I went out to California to do that, and after I found out he murdered his girlfriend, I pulled the interview. So unfortunately, um, things didn't turn out so well for him. He got triggered.
Wow.
He in the secret space program, or at least in our squad, he was in charge of blunt weapons. So he got triggered. But Sabretooth, my role was like a sniper role, recon sniper. Dreadnought, his was explosives. Adam, but there were other people on our team. We had people that were informationers who would relay information to us psychically. And I actually talked to Johan about informationers, if he knew what it was, and he confirmed that that he was actually informationer himself. So they would relate. Yeah. So apparently this stuff. Well, it just give me some validation, but okay. So Adam also had the ability to channel. He brought in this being his name is Tian, and he is a 12, if I get this right, 12-foot tall reptilian from Diaries 1564. And he told me, this reptilian Tian told me that he wants to bring the system down. He's part of a group of rebel reptilians that don't like how we were treated. He's a reptilian scientist that makes cyborgs on Mars, and he's proud of his creations. He worked on me, and that there were multiple times when they just abandoned me and let me die, and he came and rescued me. And he asked me if I remembered any of that, and I said I don't, sorry, and it kind of upset him, but I can't help it.
Right. So there are good reptilians then.
Yeah. He's like think of it like a hippie scientist who says F the system,
Yeah.
right? Okay, so that's what he's like. So he said he joined a group called the Spitrones 222. But I've heard recently that he's now working at Kruger. And I have a cyborg over there that's 8 foot tall, left eye, heat seeking, right eye normal. And some of these cyborgs, I don't know what color skin, but sometimes it's silverish skin. Sometimes there's a glass plate over the head where they can open and close and put implants in. Other times, usually they just shoot you up with femtotech and it creates implants.
Oh,
But
wow.
so he's busy over there making a cyborg. But Tian told me that Nathan was on the moon in a base. The actual numbers in my book, but it's Alpha niner something, and there's some digits, 4 or 5, something like 4 or 5 digits. But he was taken to this facility, and then they replaced him with a clone. The one that's here on the surface is supposedly a clone. That doesn't mean that the clone doesn't have Nate's soul, but it could, it may not. I don't know. It doesn't really feel like the same person I know. But when the Nate on the version on the moon that I knew, he's basically, they would put him in the trip seat, lobotomize him, they wouldn't feed him. They would keep him in a prison cell. They would die, and then they would put him back into the regen tank to reanimate him, and they would just put him back in the cell. So he would, he would live in the cell for about 6 weeks and then die, and then they would just do it again, and then they severed off his legs, and they erased all his memories of me because he tried to fight back, and yeah, so he didn't do so well.
What were his missions? Why would they do such horrible things?
Well,
I mean, I know that's part of the trauma, but
right before he told me he was Lucifer and all that stuff in the book, he said he destroyed a bunch of. He said he destroyed the Greys' monetary system. He destroyed some of their ships, some of their planets, and that the beings that were doing this to us won't be doing this anymore. So he said he created a lot of havoc and destruction. So this. I don't know. All I'm trying to do here is help my friend, right? So, and he's telling me all this stuff. And so I'm getting sucked up into all this. And while this is going on, I'm still getting needle marked every day.
Oh my gosh.
Years later, I still get needle marks and cut marks. I don't know if it's every day. I don't check every day anymore, but I feel like it's at least 4 or 5 times a week because I feel them. And when, it's usually my mouth, sometimes my nose, but okay. So
now these recalls, are they coming to you in dreams, in visions, when you meditate? How are they coming to you?
Some of the recalls, usually just through meditation. I would have to meditate for over, I would say 90 minutes a session to start getting things. But I just find it really difficult to meditate that long. I'm not very, I have trouble just staying still.
I hear you.
Yeah, but most of the information I got is through regressions, and as well as working with others who are remote viewers, who were on my team, who remember stuff, and then we do regression work together. And so that's where to answer your question, it's through third party. I wish I could have more memories for myself, and it's something that really frustrates me because it's been 15 years now since I realized that something was going on in my life. And I still haven't been able to get full recalls yet, but I'm still working on it. I know why. I've learned over the years. I figured out why I'm not able to, but I don't know if you want to go down that direction.
Yeah. Why?
Well, some of the injections I get is femtotech, and one of the things the biobots do is that they can create implants in your body using your body's own natural materials. Sometimes they can teleport materials directly into it. They have that ability as well. But one of the things they did was to try to attack my pineal gland so they can turn it on and off. And I even got the serial numbers on the implants that they used, and it was made by Braun and Siemens.
Oh.
So they're military contractors working with SSP. I mean, we see them as making toaster ovens and fiber optics, but they do work with the SSP making these implants. So there's a lot of corporations that promote themselves as transnationals, and we all think they're just like legitimate businesses. Well, they do, but they also do a lot of illegitimate things that involve human trafficking, mind control, MK Ultra, and also what's going on with the Germans out of Antarctica, how they all when they took everything over. I don't know if you knew that.
Yeah.
I tried to talk. That was when my presentation in Vegas with Johan that we did. That they cut us off. Well, anyway.
That's what they did. Okay.
Well, I'm gonna say they cut. It wasn't necessarily intentional. They just did really bad planning. We were supposed to talk for at least 2 hours. Considering that we spent so much money to travel across the country to present, and they only gave us an hour. That's 30 minutes for both of us. I mean, yeah.
That's too bad. By the way, everyone, phenomenal. James and Johann Fritz did a phenomenal job up there. Anthony Zender as well. So they did panels. They did, it was like 2 to 3 days that you guys were out there, and it was fabulous. The rooms were packed to see them every day. So it was great. And I believe that some of it's going to be released soon. I actually did some of the recordings on my phone. I don't know if I can legally release that or David's going to get mad at me, but.
Well, I've got copies of the DVDs. Because of what they did to me, I think they felt so bad, or maybe somebody felt bad. I don't know. They gave me DVDs of all the panels. Additionally, the live stream that I did, with Johan that day on Friday, half the audio didn't work.
Oh no.
So people that paid tickets were furious.
Oh, not
Uh, so,
good.
what we're gonna do is we're gonna go back through that PowerPoint. We're gonna do it again over a Zoom call, so that information eventually is gonna go up on my channel in another 2 weeks or so. So
Perfect.
the
Perfect.
information is gonna be put out there. We're gonna redo it. We're gonna do it right, and then yeah. We'll have to really start rethinking about what conferences we attend in the future, or whether we should even attend any more conferences. It seems like people don't really appreciate or want this information. I don't know.
Well, there are so many people interested. Let me just tell you that. I mean, not only for Super Soldier Talk, as far as your audience, my audience, I'm going to have Johan on my channel as well. James, I'm just excited, ecstatic that you're here on Guided as well. So moving on though, let me ask you a little bit about, I mean, Nate's story is fascinating. Everyone go get Lone Wolf. By the way, how can we get that? Amazon?
No, it's I just have I have 10 more copies in stock, and it's
That's it?
well, I only sold like one book. I mean, I spent all that money. But one person bought the book. It's on neologicaltech.com. I mean, I'll get more books made if people want them, but
Okay. I think it's fascinating. The story's fascinating. Okay, so I will put that in my description, everyone, so that you can know how to get this book. I think it's really fascinating. But also, tell me a little bit about your family life, the genealogy and bloodlines. I mean, how does that play a part in everything?
yeah, well, as being a member of Project Surrogate and the SSP, they've done a lot of time looping on me. So as far as my family's concerned, and this has always been an object of contention because when my mom found my interviews one time, it really upset her when I talked about Project Surrogate. I mean, she was in denial of what they were doing to me, but ultimately she died of breast cancer. I just don't think she could handle
Oh,
the
I'm so
information. But
sorry.
my dad, I mean, he's still alive as of 2020 in this interview, but I mean, from what my records show, and the reason why I'm gonna go over this is because over the years I worked with different remote viewers, and one of the things that I wanted to do is pull my files. So like, okay, well, can you remote view some kind of computer somewhere that might have some records of me? And so this has happened like 2 or 3 times, and usually when my file record's pulled, it usually shows the date of birth, the name and my date of birth, but the date of birth always comes up as being blacked out. I'm like, well, I know I was born in, I don't necessarily say how old I am, but I know I was born in this particular date. Why is this blacked out? And that's when I learned about being part of Project Surrogate and name recovery. I don't have as much information on name recovery to really respond about it, but Project Surrogate is when they re-age you and put you into a surrogated family. So as far as when I was born, I'm not quite sure. I don't know if they did a bunch of brainwashing on my parents and made them think I was their kid, or they'd replace me, or was I inserted as a fetus, or whether I'm even related to them. I'm assuming they might have at least have some genetic connection with them, but as far as the last surrogation that I did, I was in the United States Army, um, and I died in Persia in 79. I'm not sure what month that was, but I did two tours of duty in Vietnam, and then they brought me into Delta. And it was actually Delta. They called it Delta One, is what the record showed, but I, I, I believe that what we know as Delta Force, even though they don't technically call themselves Delta Force. But so I was very religious. I used to keep a Christian cross on me. I grew up in this. I actually got visualizations about this. I grew up on a farm, and it was very poor. And I later realized it was in Alabama. And so yeah, going back, yeah. And then when I died in 79, the U.S. Army I guess they would declare you zero, and that's when I could talk about the JFK connection later, but at that point, the U.S. Army didn't have access to reanimation tech, but the Nazis did at Area 51, because that's Project Paperclip. They brought the Nazis down there, and some of these Nazis are still alive today. They're 120 to 150 years old, but
Wow.
they brought my Reelsburg body down to Area 51, and they converted him into a cyborg. So he is currently about 8 foot tall. He's got a lot of old legacy hardware built into him, left eye, heat seeking, and there's probably you could probably also see interdimensionally. I just say heat seeking, but there's a lot more that left eye could see. So he's plugged into an AI computer, and he's got he wears like black leather pants, a black leather rolled up shirt. He's got a Nazi cyborg tattoo that has his number code of his, I guess his programming ID. He's different from other cyborgs in that they allowed him to have some of his memories. But I was trying to get information about any brothers or sisters. Maybe I even have parents still alive. I doubt it, but he couldn't remember that. They erased all those memories.
James, so before the show, when we were talking about that one particular person that I said was a cyborg, I saw him with a visor. Do you remember any of the cyborgs wearing anything like that over the eyes?
I wouldn't put him past them. I mean, certainly there was some disclosure in Star Trek, The Next Generation, Geordi LaForge. So, they can do stuff like that. They can create a tail to sever a leg, creates all sorts of augmentations if they wanted to. But the more advanced groups, they can just shoot you up with femtotech and you just shapeshift to whatever augments. And now what they're trying to do is they want you to look totally normal. They don't want any kind of weird looking cyborgs. They want you to look like maybe even a small, short, compact man or woman, and you wouldn't even know that they're a super soldier. So that's their goal. And I don't know where they are in the progress in that, but
now,
anyway.
When you talk about Vietnam, when you maybe watch a movie or some type of television series, did you ever have like this resonance with anything Vietnam at all?
Yeah, I don't like to watch any. I don't want to watch any movies about it. That's what you want to know.
Yeah.
I don't like any of those movies from that era.
So that was probably another indication, like something's up with that.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so he is running base security for Shoreline, which is a military contractor down at Area 51, lower levels. And he's basically a slave, and he would be happy if he could just die right now. But
wow.
They also augmented my hair. They made me more platinum blonde, like the actor Dolph Lundgren.
Lundgren, yeah.
So they wanted me to have more of that Nazi look. But I mean, he's grateful for the Nazis for saving his life. But on the other hand, he does feel like a slave. And even though he's high up and running security there, he doesn't really have much freedoms. It's not like he can leave anytime he wants. And obviously, as a cyborg, 8 foot tall cyborg, he can't go up on the surface anytime soon.
How did you feel when you were in Vegas? I mean, you were kind of close to Area 51. So, I mean, did you have any type of feeling or resonance or anything when you were there?
Yeah. I mean, I went to Area 51 last year up to the gate. So I brought my book up. That video is on YouTube. I brought my book with me, and I did a book reading about the cyborg clone down there. And apparently everything is closely monitored, even near the gate. So if you go out there do a book reading, they're gonna hear it and know what you're talking about. So, but my Reelsburg clone, he didn't know that was me. He didn't know I was talking about him, but evidently he was reviewing it at the time. But so now he knows. But anyway, so there's not much I can do about it. So why that happened, they also made a clone, at least what I think is going on here. They made another clone body of me and then put that into my mom, and maybe they did some genetic changed it a little bit so my family wouldn't reject me. I have some genetic resemblance to them.
Now, did you, growing up, did you feel like you guys aren't my parents,
Yeah.
or I don't belong here?
Sometimes when I'm going to family events, I just sit here. I'm like wondering, how are these people even my family? I mean, I try to be. I'm always nice and polite, but I don't feel like connected to them. But
Yeah, yeah. So it's interesting because I remember as a child waking up and telling my parents, "You're not my real parents." You're not my real parents. And then I found out just a couple years ago that I got really sick when I was an infant, and they had to do like a spinal tap or something on me. And I was basically on death's door. And it makes me wonder, like, were they actually getting DNA from my spinal fluid or something? I mean, who knows what they were doing? Because it was only out of like 25 infants in the nursery, there were only 3 of us who apparently got sick. So it makes you wonder.
yeah, yeah. Well, the whoever did that to you was most likely part of maybe the military or one of these planetary corporations. The more advanced groups, the ETs, they don't really, they could just take you discreetly, or they take you outside of time. They don't need to go to a hospital to do that. So my guess, whoever did that was not necessarily a positive group. And it's one of the
Right.
groups that don't really have access to the advanced tech as
Yeah.
advanced. I mean, certainly some of them have some access, but um,
Yeah. I
anyway.
thought it was really interesting. Plus, I mean, there's military on both sides of my family. And the fact that my mom left me there in the hospital, I'm like, you did what? She's like, well, I was a new mom and, protocol was so different. I'm like, oh my gosh, wow. So who knows what happened?
Is your mom still alive?
Yeah.
Is your is your relationship okay now, or is it?
Uh, it's
Is it not
okay.
okay? Okay. All
Yeah.
right. Well,
Yeah.
leave it at that.
I'm still in the process of wanting to take a DNA test. So we'll see. We'll see what
Yeah.
happens with
Well, it'll
that.
probably show that you've got some resemblance, because they usually try to throw a little bit of the DNA of your family into you, so that way they don't reject you totally.
Yeah.
Mm. As a
It's all
soul,
this stuff is
as a
fascinating.
soul, as a soul group, you probably don't resonate with them because they take us and insert us into these families. If you were part of surrogate, so you may not even resonate in the same soul level as them, which to me it shouldn't even be allowed for them to do that.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's why we have the reincarnation, in my opinion, the reincarnation cycle, so that we can incarnate to our own soul groups, not be forced into slavery. But anyway, yeah. So
That's so interesting.
we're
Now, as far as the bloodlines are concerned, now you talk about the Nazis and stuff like that. Tell me a little bit about that.
well, certainly they're looking for people who have Caucasian appearance, and the reason why is they've got systems of brainwashing in place, which is most effective on people who are blue eyes and blonde hair. I was blonde when I was a kid, by the way. As well as yeah, so that's one of the reasons. Yeah, the Nazis are work with Caucasians, but they can also do the same process on black people per se, but they have to create a whole process. It's just a lot of work, so that's why they don't do it as much. But as far as like genetic background, they like people who have extraterrestrial DNA in particular, because we have certain powers and abilities.
Hmm.
Even though when the Nazis were in power, they value genetic purity, but ultimately they found that the different types of genetic coding that you had meant that you were actually a more well-rounded person. You could pull on from these genetic codes. So the so there's like 2 different groups of Nazis. There's like we know about the eugenic programs that they were doing. One group was trying to create their Superman. I think they called it the Zarathustra, where they would try to achieve a level of superhuman above man, the normal man. So they would do that through breeding, right? So, and then they had another group where they were very racist and they were getting these philosophies from the Nordics. And I think the Dracos were also involved in that too, in which they were specifying that only a certain group of genetic background could become the Superman. So ultimately you had these two different groups. One was racist and one wasn't. And they ultimately found that the crossbreeds, the one that had the more genetic background, they were more likely to become the Zarathustra, the Superman.
Oh,
And
interesting.
this is I don't know if you ever looked into Friedrich Nietzsche, that,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so he was always into the Z alter, the Z component. But so there was a group of Nazis called the Therians, if I'm not mistaken, from the research that I've done, that were trying to create this superhuman using all this other extra crossbreed DNA. So they didn't really care about being racist. They just were trying to create something better than humanity could become. So not all of them are racist, but yeah, there is certainly a eugenic component to all this that they're highly interested in. So for my genetic background as part of Project Surrogate and having a lot of extraterrestrial DNA, they were interested in me because of that. As far as if you're asking me, well, are you connected to royalty? Well, yeah, I was a king in a past life. I was also a demigod. I think I was also a president. That information just came up recently. My soul connection is connected to Saint Germain. I've got a
Mm-hmm.
fragment of Saint Germain. I'm like part of his soul group. I wouldn't call.
I knew that. Like as soon as your documentary I was watching, I'm like, I swear he has a connection to Saint Germain.
Yeah, but there are a lot of people on the planet right now that have his soul consciousness, and that's where I think Nate was going into this one of the supreme beings. But I've got like a much smaller part of the consciousness than some of the others, but I guess it's just enough to kind of make things difficult for me to kind of plug into the system, because the whole system that we live on this planet is messed up, and I just don't really want any part of it. But I want to try to transcend it, and that's where my videos come into play. And anyhow.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So as far as the ET realms, continue with that. I mean, tell me about some of your connections.
Oh, okay. Well, that would be from David Lotherington. He has an amazing ability to channel your genetic codes, and I want to give a shout out to him. You can go check out.
I
Um,
saw his interview. It's fascinating.
yeah, davidlotherington.com. So he told me that. I'm trying to remember off the top of my mind. I think he said there's like eight. I had eight different, or eight, or no. Oh geez, I think there's like 30 different races, but the
Wow.
top, yeah, the biggest ones, I think I was like maybe 8% or 12% Saurian, which is the reptilian. The next one I think came up was Palladian, and then there was Yael, which is like the different type of gray race, and then there was a bunch of other stuff in there, Andromedan and so on, Syrian, and yeah, a little bit of dolphin DNA, and going on and on. But so I'm like yeah, I'm a genetic um, mutt. Is that right?
Heinz 57. So tell me, with all of that though, your powers and your superpowers are extensive. Let's go into
Uh,
that.
Yeah, well, I'm so telekinetic. I can lift an elephant. I can usually don't even need to walk. I can levitate as a super soldier. But like I said, remember I told you earlier, they have the femtotech creates the
Mhm.
implants that shut down the pineal gland. So I'm only like 2% of what I should be at or could be at. But I mean, I guess they wanted to dumb me down, and to the point where I could maybe where I would not be able to remember what they did to me, as well as use my abilities against them, and and try to fight back, I suppose. Yeah. So, but when I'm fully activated, my skin is bulletproof. Weapons can pop out of my skin through the femtotech. Uh, so can teleport, astral, of course, you know, all the other abilities, astral travel and all that stuff. Telekinesis, telepathy. Yeah. So, but it all kind of depends on like what altar, what program they're using me. And obviously as a super soldier, they want me to be fully activated. But if I'm like an officer, because I spent some time as an officer in the MCC and also on Dark Fleet, was a navigation manager there for a while. They would bring down your psychic abilities kind of and your aggression levels so that you can, for whatever position they needed you at. Like for me as James Ring, they brought my aggression down to almost nothing. So it makes it really difficult for me to just kind of even relate to most people. And a lot of people don't even think that I'm a super soldier because of that. But when I'm fully activated, I'm pretty scary is what is relayed to me.
Wow.
We can go a little bit some of that if you want to, but
yeah. Well, before we go into that, what were your gifts just on this 3D realm?
Well, I have the ability to psychosomatically become somebody else. So if I was to do a regression, because I do some regressions on other people to help them get their memories. I can go into their mind and become a fragment of themselves and help them get some of their own memories back. I work out of my, I guess my solar plexus. So I
Like
have,
clairsentient?
well, more like, I guess, intuition. I kind of go by gut feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where, you know, when it came to changes on the horizon, when I was doing a lot of research, I kind of like, this feels right. That doesn't, this feels right. And I just kind of put something together. And then when I put it together with the music and the visualizations, I'm like, oh, I must have been channeling something higher up. I mean, I don't know if once you get to the last video, at the end clip with the music and when you see Abraham Lincoln show up on how he tried to fix the Federal Reserve and all. I'm sorry, not the Federal Reserve. Try to get rid of the bankers and all that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Anyway, okay, so we're digressing here. Yeah. If you're asking me if I have any like superhuman abilities as James Rink, sometimes, like when my dad one time commented when I was a kid, he came home and he saw me levitating over my bed.
Wow.
And he got this Bible out and prayed over me to make the demons go away. And I asked David if he could try to figure out what happened to me, David Lotherington, and David seems to think that the Greys were in the process of abducting me right when my dad saw he caught them and trying to abduct me.
Oh my gosh.
So see here another time. Sometimes I like if I watch scary movies, I hate to say the word scary, more like violent movies, I get triggered and sometimes things telekinetically can move. I would say yes. I used to have some astral travel experiences when I was younger. That disappeared. That went away. But yeah. So that's basically all I have to really comment about.
That is fascinating. Do you feel like the more you meditate, the more in alignment with you are with your gifts?
No, I think
No.
I feel like meditation just keeps me from wanting to go crazy.
Okay.
I was part of Project Abandonment. That was another thing that they were. I was put in a program of defunct super soldiers because I was not cooperating with my programming. At least when I went through some of the more negative groups, they were expecting me. I mean, like I said, I was a connection of Saint Germain. They were trying to get tapped into that, and I would not, under no circumstances, it didn't matter how much they tortured me, they could never get access to those higher realms. But also, yes, just forgot. What was I saying?
About Saint Germain and the
No,
defunct
before that.
super soldiers.
Oh, abandonment. So,
Yeah.
so they realized I couldn't be fully controlled. Like they would send me on missions and expect me to exterminate everyone, and I'll come back and didn't do everything that I was supposed to do. And I'm supposed to be a cyborg. I'm like, how in the world did you not do what you're supposed to do? So, they ultimately realized they couldn't fully control me, and they put me into Project Abandonment, in which they would give me in certain nano or femto injections to see if they can try to convert me. And then they would put me through the Monarch programming and try to traumatize and torture the crap out of me to the point where they would split me. And obviously, and that, you know, I spent 7 years through a monarch orphanage, another alternate timeline where they were doing that. But ultimately they realized they couldn't control me. So so the goal was to put me into a life track where I would exterminate myself. And that way they would be absolved of their karma, because evidently if you kill yourself, then the people that torture and traumatize you are not as karmatically linked to you as much. To me, it doesn't seem fair. Or I
Yeah,
don't know
that
if
doesn't
that's
seem fair.
accurate. I'm not sure if it's accurate, but that's what I was told.
Mm.
Um,
That almost seems like trying to trick the system or something.
yeah, well, so they gave me a pretty crappy childhood. I mean, my parents didn't like sexually abuse me, but they certainly weren't. I don't really like talking about my family right now, but what I can say is that I survived it all, and I didn't kill myself. Um, you know, I didn't, I wouldn't say I didn't try to kill myself. I mean, when I was a kid, a teenager, I had anorexia kind of
Hmm.
symptoms, and my goal was to starve myself so that I would get sick, and then I could be possibly taken away and put into a hospital, or just anywhere, get away from my family.
Yeah.
But ultimately what happened, I was not very good at the hunger starvation things. So I would always eat just enough just to keep me going, but enough to stunt my height. So I was only 5 foot, roughly about 5 foot tall by the time I finished puberty.
It
So
seems like this is very common with super soldiers, like just a very traumatized childhood, very challenged. And it's like part of what they have to overcome is all of this, you know, and to try to become aligned with their higher selves and their higher calling and their higher mission. And like you said, be in alignment with, you know, your Saint Germain fragment. Would you agree with that?
yeah, yeah. I mean, they're always trying to find ways of targeting you if you're a
Yeah,
super soldier,
yeah,
or in these projects. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, myself, I went through an eating disorder when I was, it started in sixth grade. And
So then you might have been in abandonment as well.
I mean, it was horrific. I mean, um, yeah.
If you went through, because I went through Monarch and Montauk, and they roughly right around the age of 13, they would re-age us. So when I would get up, usually they wouldn't let me get to 13, but so when I got to be 13, I started to have panic attacks. I thought I was going to die right around that period. So I was always trying to hide under my bed, and I couldn't sleep at night, and I thought, you know, and
So it's interesting that you say stuff like that because I had the same thing. I was so scared. And I remember this one time I would try to sing like to help with that. So I would cover my eyes and I'd go from the bathroom to my bedroom and I would just like run. Well, this one time I was just about ready to go from my bedroom to, or from the bathroom to the bedroom. And I was like going like this, you know, before I just hit the light switch. And I heard somebody call my name. I thought it was my mom. So I run into her room and I'm like, Mom, don't scare me like that. Oh my gosh. And she's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, you called my name. And she's like, no, I didn't. Well, that freaked me out even more. So it was stuff like that that would constantly happen. You know, you're like either hearing people call your name or it's just like you're so sensitive too, like the spiritual realm. It's like I feel like we're also very
did,
sensitive to that kind of stuff.
did you have trouble sleeping at night?
Yeah. Not only because I had trouble sleeping, but because spiritual things would wake me up.
Hmm. Yeah, that was my next question. Did you ever feel like a wind blowing over you?
That, but also people waking me, like spirits waking me up.
Hmm. Did you see the spirits, or you just hear them?
Both.
Okay. And did they look like orbs, or did they look like beans?
Beings, sometimes shadows,
Hmm.
sometimes light, um, but a lot of hearing them too.
Okay. Did you ever feel like ever hear like electrocution, or thunder kind of going off, and then you wake up, and there's not from thunder from the rain. Just it sounds like a loud bang like that.
Yeah, or stuff even falling off, a dresser, or
Okay.
I also remember ships coming to my window. So yeah, there were things
You
like
ever see the
that.
Grays?
No, I never saw the Greys, but I did see when I was 5, and I was on a ship. I was sick, and so I was taken to the ship, and I was put on the stainless steel bed,
Mhm.
and there were tall people with doctor coats, and then behind them there were mantis beings. And basically, I was told that they were trying to keep me incarnated because I was ready to exit. So yeah, apparently it was a 911 call from my ET family, or one of my ET tribes or something, to keep me incarnated.
Just
So very interesting.
all right.
But yeah, I just feel like there was a lot of trauma, in childhood.
Yeah, one time I woke up, I heard somebody say "turn around," and I opened my eyes. I'm like, I'm in
Oh,
my bed. Another time I felt like that I was like being electroshocked, and then I woke up and I was like, "What? Where's that from?" But yeah, it's
when you
anyway.
talk about sleeping bags, though, I mean, I was constantly in a sleeping bag by my parents' bed because I
Because you,
didn't
you
want to
slept in
sleep.
sleeping bags too.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
have trouble sleeping in your bed?
yes.
Uh,
I didn't want to sleep in my own bed or my bedroom. I always had to be
Interesting.
either by my parents in a sleeping bag, because they were like, no, you're not sleeping with us again. Okay, if you're going to sleep here, sleep in a sleeping bag next to our bed. So, yep.
All right. Yeah. Well, it's good to know that I'm not the only one that had, even
Oh
though
no.
I'm sorry to hear that happened to you too. I don't, I mean, misery likes company, but it would be best. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I want to do disclosure, is to educate people, to let them know that there are groups out there that have very advanced technology, and there's no recourse. They can do
Right.
whatever they want. And although certainly sounds like those beings were benevolent, but some of them aren't.
Right.
And until people are aware of it, until a system is set up in place of checks and balances, where this could happen to everybody. It could happen to the whole, yeah, and it could continue going on for generations and generations until somebody says no.
Yeah.
And that's what I want to do, is come out here and say no.
Yeah.
We should, if we want to participate with extraterrestrials, we should be allowed to consent, and we should be. And I don't think it's appropriate for them necessarily to start abducting babies and little children. I think they should ask the parents if it's okay first. But obviously, like that's ever going to happen. I don't anytime
See,
soon.
and that's the thing that I have trouble with, is why, I mean, is there a soul agreement at some point for this to happen? And have we agreed, to have this happen? I mean, I wouldn't think so, for all of this
Yeah, well,
trauma
that's
happening.
what they think. They think we make a soul agreement before we go into our current, because we some of us were part of those groups, those ET groups in past lives. So we made an agreement to come to planet Earth and to represent as ambassadors to their worlds, so that information could be telepathically relayed back to their soul family, the ETs, what it's like being a human. So the ETs show up, and but
I've heard that for Grays. Yeah.
in that particular case, most of those are benevolent interactions. It's just when we start talking about the planetary corporations getting involved, or even the military, the cabal, the Nazis, that's when things quickly go bad. Although not some of these groups are not all of them are bad, but anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, it's that's very interesting to me. And like you, I mean, I don't think this should go on, and I think there should be consequences for all of that. So, okay, I'm looking at some of the other questions that I have for you. So we've talked about your spiritual gifts. We've talked about some of the augmentations that you've had. So let's see. We've talked about some of your superpowers as a super soldier, and some of the programs. Okay, you've talked lightly about some of the programs you've been in. You've talked about Monarch Corporation, MCC, a little bit more. Can you expand upon that?
Okay. Well, depending on which 20-year and back mission, some of them are not 20 years and back, but like for instance, MCC is Mars Colony Corporation, and maybe I should go back before that because the timeline isn't linear. Some of them are multiple timelines at the same time. I could be, like for instance, I'm here talking to you, but I'm also up there on Mars right now in a cyborg body living a life too, because my soul got split into so-called alters. So, and then I think there's another one. There's like 3 of them right now. I'm not sure what the other one is, but
Yeah,
so
how
I'm
many
still
alters do you think
active.
you have right now out there?
Oh, that's a good question. I've never quite looked into that to figure out how many. Um, I couldn't answer that right now, but
Okay.
what I will try to do is give you the best timeline as possible. So we've already discussed Montauk, about 43 years there, and then I was rescued. From there, there was another timeline. I was brought into a monarch orphanage for 7 years. I don't have much information on that. The memories are buried, probably where they should stay buried.
Yeah, do you
So
think that could have been on Montauk Island in near Long
it
Island?
was the Montauk experiences was in a time freezing zone in a reality just outside our reality. It's like a bubble reality.
Okay.
So um, some of the children were being kept on the surface on barracks, and there were reptilians with human personnel driving around in jeeps. So they're not going to do that in this reality. So it was just, yeah. So they create these pocket realities using and that technology came from Mobius, and Monarch also got a hold of it. So those planetary corporations are 6 to 12,000 years old. And Montauk got a hold of it, and they're using to create these pocket realities. So they would take these children there, and yeah. Anyway, okay. At that point, I'm not sure exactly, when it starts and when it ends, but there was another timeline in which I was Derrick Reinhold, and I was sent to and this is in the Nazi reality in which the Nazis won World War II, and I'm training at Abatava in Alaska, along with other super soldiers. So we have Casbold's there, Max Spears is there. There's about 20 of us. I wouldn't be surprised if Zender's there, but we're just pitted against each other. We just do skirmishes day after day in the Alaskan bush to try to, I don't know, find each other. And then they bring us back to the mess hall, and we're treated better than the other kids, but it is a gulag. So they take other kids, not kids, but people, and but we're treated a little bit better. So I spent about 20 years there, 20 years or 7 years, I can't remember. So that was in the future, roughly around 2036 to 2040. And then from there, he was sent back in time into our reality to 1940 to MCC 45, roughly on Mars, where he was stationed as a super soldier in the early period of Mars, which was a very harsh environment to be in the 40s and 50s. Going into the 60s and 70s and later on, he was shuffled out from being a super soldier more into upper management, into logistics, which is responsible for planning, making plans for the colonies, as well as the military operations. So it all kind of depends, which program we shuffled in, whether they bring his aggression up or down. And now I guess he's back doing more of the super soldier missions as a cyborg with Kruger. And Kruger is another military contractor that conducts missions for MCC. Of course, MCC has they have their own groups. Mars, got Mars Defense Force, typically works with MCC, but Kruger is a private contractor. It sometimes contracts with them. But so while that's going, there's this really long time loop going on, and then I don't know at what point they brought me into Darkfleet. There could be another time loop. I'm not sure, but I don't have. I only found out about Darkfleet maybe about a year ago through regressions, and I have not even figured out what ship I was on, and you know, so I couldn't comment too much. But I did have a Draco handler, but
Oh, interesting. So something about, I mean, I have no idea if this is involved with Darkfleet, but I had a dream and I was on a ship and we were trying to get through this force field. And the captain on the ship, and I feel like it could be Johan, but all of a sudden there was this enemy force and the CO was like, hurry, type in Dark Star, Project Dark Star. And I was like, and I remember at the time I like messaged Anthony Zender and I was like, do you know anything about Project Dark Star? And he's like, you know what? I feel like I've heard something like that. I Googled it and there's something on a video game called Project Dark Star. But it was interesting because then I woke up after that. We were just about ready to go into the force field, close to, I don't even remember what planet. I feel like it could have been Mars. But
sorry, I don't have any information on Dark Star. You need somebody who's a clairvoyant, or we need to get you under a regression.
yeah.
And, that's where I've got the list on my website on Super Soldier Talk. I think Veronica might be able to get you some information on it, but
I'll have to reach out to her. Yeah. Okay. And then one question about Alaska. Do you remember anything as far as what went on, or do you have any information as far as administration at the time or politics at the time?
I was about 15 years old. So because it was actually channel communication with I can pull up the notes if you want that.
Yeah, that'd be fascinating.
Okay, give me a moment here. So this is with Kimberly, and she's not come public yet, but wanted to give a shout out to her.
Is Kimberly the one that you had on the show?
I've had no. I mean, I've had Kimberly on my show, but she this is a different Kimberly. So
okay.
Let's go here. So Derrick, when I reached out to him, he says he's been there for 8.5 years. They move him around from program to program. He says he's not aware of my presence in this reality. He only knows himself as Derrick. And so he asked me where I live, and I tell him I live in North Carolina, in which the Nazis lost the war. And I tell him I have a background in horticulture and finance. By the way, I have a degree in horticulture too.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So, and I tell him that my hobbies are hip hop, dance, and break dance.
Nice.
And I actually got I got to practice with the boy band B2K on stage, which is an all black boy band. So I was telling him about this hip hop culture and the hip hop dance, and he didn't understand what I was talking about because the black culture, the soul culture, all was highly suppressed over there. So, and I didn't tell him I was friends with a bunch of black people because, I didn't want him to have a nervous breakdown just yet. He says that he's talking, he says he wants to learn how to surf in Virginia Beach, and he talks about Virginia Beach like it's this amazing place to be. And I'm like, wow. What? Like Virginia, it's not, to me, it seems kind of, I don't know, redneck. I don't know if you've ever been to Virginia Beach. I'm not going to comment anything negative about Virginia Beach. I'm sure there's some amazing people there. I don't want, but if you've ever been in that area, maybe you know what I'm talking about. But okay, so by the way, have you ever been to Virginia Beach?
I think I've driven through it. It's been a while.
Yeah. Well, Edgar Casey's, I mean, he's got his.
That's right. Edgar Casey's foundation, right? Or center. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so he says his hobbies are firing weapons, training ancient art of sword fighting, and ancient weaponry. He's even practicing with done samurai training. I told him that they're going to most likely erase his memories at the end of his training and replace them with him being a surrogate family. And he says that he was not aware they would do that, but he says there's not much he can do about it. He's upset,
Wow.
but he's glad that he can meet me. And he said that the year is 2042.
Ah.
Um, so he said here there are significant time memory lapses. They trained me, killed me, and wiped me out. I'm living two lives simultaneously. I was training, regenerating their time offline when I died in 79 is Reelsburg. And that's what is causing memory lapse issues. The memories may not come in memories, but rather in feelings. You need to develop the connection to get fluid download. So anyway, so that's from my book. You can go check that out.
That
But
is so fascinating. Just to almost be able to counsel him in that realm, like, hey, by the way, they're going to probably do this to you.
yeah, yeah.
That is so
Well,
interesting.
so in the Nazi reality, the Nazis took over the East Coast, and the I guess the new Reich Republic, I guess, and the main party in power is the ARN, the Aryan Reich Nazi Party. I'm trying to make sure I get that right. And then so they blew up after they had their D-Day. They blew up the Washington Monument, and they put a spinning eagle in its place. So they didn't. I don't think they used nuclear bombs like in the movie. I'm sorry, in the TV show
Mm-hmm.
in High Castle. And then the Japanese are controlled the West Coast. And then the Nazis really they gave Nikola Tesla unlimited budget, and they allowed him to release all the suppressed technologies so people can live as long as they want. Most people live in mansions. Minimum wage is about $40 an hour. You only have to work a couple hours a day if you want. Yeah, so everybody's driving Beamers and Mercedes, and the only thing is you're not allowed to do interracial marriage. They have rules against it. But
Huh.
Trump is very high up in the Nazi party over there. Um, and he actually told Hitler because some of the police they carry electric cattle prods with
Mm-hmm.
them. So if you speak English in public, you get the police will electrocute you.
Oh my gosh.
So so Trump told Hitler that he better piss off and stop doing this, otherwise there's going to be another revolution, another civil war, revolt. So at that point,
Wow.
they kind of backed off. So Trump, he always had our best interests in mind, even over there. But Hitler is still alive, and they never did their final solution in that timeline. They embraced the Jews. They never invaded the Soviet Union, and yeah, they just released all the advanced tech, and it's a fairly nice place to live as long as you don't have want to do interracial marriage.
That's really fascinating. So, where are the Bushes and all of that?
I'm sure they annihilated the cabal because Paul Serene, the head of Monarch, um, Hitler personally killed him, brought him to the office and shot him in the head. So the Nazis took care of Monarch. They got rid of all these negative planetary corporations, and so that they're the head honcho. They're in charge of everything over there, and they cleaned up. They did a lot of good to clean everything up, but unfortunately they're also, in my opinion, regressive in many ways. Like you're not allowed to do public affection. You're not allowed to hold hands in public or kiss in public. Because you know how like if you ever go like on prank shows on YouTube, you see people doing some things that are like socially inappropriate in public. I couldn't imagine what it would be like in that reality because everybody's so repressive,
Yeah.
unfortunately. But you can kind of imagine he'll be a little bit snobbish. And the cities also look a little bit different. Obviously, everything's developed differently from 1940s and 45 and then on. So the cities have more of a European type look to them.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
So, talk a little bit, James, about like the Third Reich, the Fourth Reich, and all of that.
yeah, yeah. That was in my presentation in Vegas. I went into that because so many people don't know about the different Reichs. And
Right.
even I wasn't even aware of it for a while. I was like, well, what's the difference between third, fourth, and fifth? So
Yeah, I
third,
learned about it from your show.
yeah,
So,
Third Reich. So Third Reich are the original Nazis going back from World War II. So yeah, we're talking about the original Nazi SS and Hitler. And so we know the history books tell us that they were defeated. So Fourth Reich. Fourth Reich are Project Paperclip Nazis that Alan Dulles, Wild Bill Donovan, and I forgot the name of the third person. We were basically, OSS was going over to Austria and Switzerland to pick up these Nazis after World War II, to bring them in into the MIC, the military industrial complex here in the US, because there were so many brilliant Nazi scientists that they wanted to get their hands on. Now, right after World War II, General Patton and Eisenhower were going down to some of these Nazi military installations underground, these factories, because they bombed everything on the surface. The only way they're producing weaponry was underground, and they went into these factories, and what they saw, the technology down there was utterly astonishing. We're talking about anti-gravity technology, free energy, and if the war progressed 6 months longer, the Nazis probably would have won. But anyway, so we simply just outproduced them. We had more, we didn't have a front. I mean, the United States wasn't constantly being bombed, so we had factories that were constantly just throwing. Even our technology was inferior. We just could produce much more of it, so we outproduced them. So they saw this advanced technology and they wanted to get their hands on the Nazis. Most of them went to Antarctica. There are about 300,000 of them that went down to base 211, if I got that right, in New Schwabenland.
Mm-hmm.
So
wow, 300,000. I didn't realize how many. Okay.
Yeah, well, I wasn't allowed to get that far in my presentation. Well, I will get the presentation eventually. Okay, so yeah, so they wanted to get their hands on whoever's left over that never made the cut to get to 211. And so those are the 50,000 Project Paperclip scientists that that helped create NASA and so on. So now the Fifth Reich are the Antarctic Germans who later moved out to off-world to create Dark Fleet, MCC, and so on, the secret space program. So the Fifth Reich, they don't really consider themselves Nazis. They consider themselves more, I guess, Germans, like a Teutonic, Teutonic Knights. They were the ones that were protecting the Crusaders. So they feel like they're knights protecting their own people, I suppose. But they do follow a lot of the beliefs of Nazism, but they just don't, a lot of them don't incorporate the same type of eugenic policies and racism, the same level of racism that I guess Himmler was pushing out through his final solution. But,
where does the Vril Society fit in all this? They're working with the Third Reich. They worked with the Third Reich.
Well, this goes back to I think it was 1918 or 1919, roughly around then. There were certain secret societies in Germany, the Vril, I guess the Black Sun, there was another one, the Thule. So they were channeling beings for Aldebaran, as well as I'm sure the Draco will probably come in at some point.
Yeah.
Giving them information on how to build very advanced technology, flying platforms, more specifically, the Digaka, the Bell technology that could also time travel. So the Vril Secret Society, there were, I think, Maria Orschitz.
Yeah. Orsich, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Still trying to get her name pronounced right, but she was one of the Vril girls. There were a few other them on there. I don't remember all the names of them, but yeah. So they were helping the German aristocracy that were part of this group to decode on how to build it, because you also need engineers involved. So it took a while, maybe about 20 years. I guess it'll be. So if it was 1918, I would say maybe about 15 years before, because roughly around 33 to 37 is when they started getting the prototypes built. And that's where 37, they went to the moon and made a deal with the Draco. They started building out the colony on the 20 acre area on the moon roughly around 1940, if I'm not mistaken. And they were also building up base 211 in Antarctica right around the same time. Okay. So yeah, I think that answers your question.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So I had a QHHT session one time, and most of my experiences were all off world. And in one of the experiences, I saw these bases that had been shut down on the dark side of the moon. And so I knew that we had been on the moon for just a long, long, long time. But I'm wondering what bases those were. I need to like go and talk to either Veronica or somebody, because I'm wondering what bases were shut down there on the dark side of the moon.
Well, I mean, LOC is still in operation. It's just they may have had change of management. Um,
Mm,
the Nazis, they got other facilities they got their hands on.
huh.
Uh, ICC is in charge of all this stuff, so they. I mean, I don't know how many facilities they have on the moon now, but I know that LOC. I mean, it's been built out over all these years. I mean, like I said, it was 1940s, so it's been there for a
Yeah.
while. But
Yeah. What I saw was it looked like bases that had been abandoned.
hmm.
So I don't know.
Well, all the territory on the moon is already claimed by other races. In order for humans here on planet Earth to get access to any facilities bases, they have to make a treaty with other ET groups. So at that time, the Nazis, the only group that would be willing to give them any land were the Draco. But the Draco, they've always been trying to find ways to manipulate humanity, and they're like, well, this is an opportunity for us to let's give them something and give them some trinkets, and that's anyway.
Yeah.
But as far as these abandoned bases, I mean, I couldn't comment. Yeah, that's bomb.
Huh. Such fascinating stuff. Okay, so as far as, because you mentioned PTSD, and many of us experience that kind of stuff with the trauma and everything like that. How do you personally handle that? I mean, meditation or what else?
Uh, what else? I mean, I like to do my dance stuff, exercise. I think getting enough exercise and eating healthy. I do some detoxing through zeolites, and I do take activate charcoal and some C60. I know the
What are
science of
zeolites?
it's a mineral that helps pull out heavy metals.
Oh,
So
okay.
you've been shot up with biobots and femtobots. You need that.
Yeah.
But there are other ways to go. I mean, bentonite clays, but I mean, stuff's super cheap. You just take like a little gram of it a day, and it doesn't really create any, doesn't have side effects like a drug or an herb would have. But so
And
it's
I
super.
love dancing. That's so perfect.
What's your genre or your that you prefer to your style?
Yeah, you know what? So I was a competitive ballroom dancer. And let's see, the last time I competed pro-am was 5 years ago. And we were in the top 3. So
Mm.
yeah, I was on a formation team and we competed. And then after that, I danced pro-am, and I danced standard and international and also Latin international. It was super fun. But I love all styles, from
Mm.
hip hop to jazz to modern. I love it all.
I took a class in is it bachata? Is that
Uh-huh. Bachata.
bachata? Yeah,
Yeah.
that was it was out of my element. I've also done the ballroom dancing, and I was like, I couldn't figure it out. So, but it was only one class, so there's a little thing to it, but it's something fun to do. It
Yeah.
gets.
And you just keep at it.
Mhm, mhm,
So fun. Yeah. And it helps your body, it helps your mind. It's just one of those things. And it's great for like a lead follow, and if you're like trying to work on like the divine masculine and feminine energies and balancing those within yourself, perfect. Dance is perfect for that, especially like couple dancing.
mhm. I also took some classes in the Portuguese style. It's like breakdancing, but do you know what that's called? I forgot. It was a
No.
slave dance where they couldn't touch each other. I forgot. I should know what it is. I did
Oh,
a couple of those.
is it Zouk by any chance?
No. But anyway, it doesn't really matter. We're way off topic here. So
Well, actually, it fits right in though, because like, you know, people who are dealing with PTSD, I mean,
Capoeira. Capoeira.
oh, I've heard of that.
Yes.
Yes.
I think maybe a lot of this is part of my training too. When I was a super soldier, they would train us in a lot of martial arts, and like it's just, well, maybe this is
Yes.
an alter coming out, but I don't know.
I
So
agree. I absolutely agree. In fact, Anthony Zender and I were talking probably like, I don't know, 6 months ago about dance. Because, you know, those of us who have had lives in Lumeria, even, you know, that was part of dance, was part of that culture, you know? So, and the arts. So, I mean, I had a life in Lumeria as well. But okay, so moving on. So discovering the true history of this 3D world. I mean, you got really deep into it when you did your documentary. What was that like? I mean, uncovering all that stuff. I'm sure part of you felt resentful, like, wow, so much has been hidden. And, you know, part of my mission is to disclose it. So what were your feelings on all of that?
yeah, well, I mean, when I started doing changes on the Horizon, this was even before Super Soldier, before I was doing Super Soldier Talk. My goal was to bring about the information in a way that was easy to understand because um, I understand what you said about resentful because there were a lot of documentaries out there that talked about the banking system, finance, Federal Reserve, not so much about the IRS. Almost nobody, it seems everybody's scared of them, which I guess a lot of people have good reason to be scared of them. But yeah, so but nobody really wanted to do a documentary to tie all this into Saint Germain and Off-World, as well as the Nassara group. So I came across the information originally from Patrick Bellringer's website, 4winds10.com, which I was a regular reader for many, many years. And I learned about Nassar through that website. And through him, I realized that there was a lot we're not being told. So I decided that I was just going to create a video just to document this because nobody else has done it. And initially, the video, the transcript grew in size to a 40-page, 45-page document, which became Changes on the Horizon, the narration of that. Yeah, it takes about 3 hours to go through 45 pages, but I put some nice pretty music and I do a lot of graphics. I even did a few animations in there too. So I try to explain everything to people so they have one-stop resource because like you said, was I resentful? I was resentful to other doc people that do documentaries. This information has been out on the internet for at least 5, 6 years because roughly it came out right around 2001. After the World Trade Center came down, that's when people started learning about Nassara. But the information was already out there, but nobody was producing anything in a way that looked somewhat professional. I mean, I wouldn't consider my documentary professional, but I just wanted to, yeah. So I wanted to be something easy to understand, entertaining, and you just sit back and just learn. But the information in there is there's so much content you almost have to listen to it a couple times, especially if you go through the standard American education system or just regular, just plugged into the media and you're not aware of a lot of these things. So it takes a while to kind of get you up. But yeah, so I'm proud of the work that it turned into. I uploaded it not well. I kind of was hoping it would go viral, and it did actually. It went viral. It got up to 5 million views, and then YouTube kept deleting it.
Oh, you're kidding.
Well, what happened is I uploaded on my channel, and then the algorithm of YouTube never sent a lot of people. Then people would copy my video and upload it onto their channel, and then that video would get 5 million views, and then YouTube would delete that. So what you saw was somebody that copied my thing, the video. But I have a new one that I put out back in April. It has 4 more minutes. It's updated for 2020.
Yeah. In fact, let's share our screen real quick because I want to show people kind of where they can go for this. Let's see here. All right, I'm sharing my screen. I'm gonna go to, let's see, that's James bio. Okay, so if you look to the right here, James is talking about how this has 4 more minutes. So changes on the horizon, Nassara mission, and right now I'm up to more than half of the documentary. And like I said before, it's fascinating. It is so comprehensive. And I think what James was also talking about before is that really it's like a lot of piecemeal on the internet, and you have to go to multiple sources in order to get all this information. But he has just this one-stop shop where you can just go and you have this information in one place. And that's what I love about this. One of the surprising things that I was like blown away with was I figured as such, but I didn't know until I watched your documentary, was that Reagan was assassinated and then a clone was put in. So
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
whoa.
Dr. Peter Beater, the head of the Import-Export Bank, he was all had inside knowledge about the robotoids and the synthetics that were being created back in the late 70s. I think they got access to around 78, the technology, the cabal. But the Nazis, they had the Antarctic Germans, they got access to the technology much earlier. So it was I'm not sure. I'm assuming that the cabal probably stole it from the Nazis, because they also stole the memory wipe technology right around that period of the mid 70s. There was a lot of fights going on between the different groups to steal technology. So I would not be surprised. The cabal was way behind these other planetary corporations, but they eventually got hands on it, and they've been using it ever since. I'm
Yeah.
sure.
And those of you who are not familiar with this kind of tech that we're talking about, I mean, you need to look up some of these government projects. And I do have a post on my Facebook just before I interviewed Anthony Zender. I put a list of projects, homework essentially, that you needed to do before watching his interview. You're going to have to go back and do that same homework if you're not up to speed with all of that for this interview with James as well. Because if this is over your head at all, I mean, we're not doing Super Soldier 101. I mean, this is like in the deep. We're deep diving here. So this tech has been out there for years, as we've talked about. And what's some of the new tech that, or maybe not new tech, but revised tech from the older tech that we're seeing now?
You mean you want to know about like the newer generation of super soldiers?
Or even some of the stuff that maybe it has been privatized. Like, I mean, Elon Musk is coming out with some stuff that I know he's gotten those iterations from either, the off-world corporations, Super Soldier Tech, and stuff like that.
Hmm. Yeah, well, Elon Musk, he's tied into Monarch. Um, so he's worked for the cabal, and I also
Mm-hmm.
just read just recently on Cobra. He also confirmed that Elon Musk has given over to the cabal. It's quite unfortunate because I was really amazed that he finally got that electric car, because the car manufacturer has been trying to suppress electric cars for quite a while, and Elon Musk got it out. So I was really happy that he was able to do it, even though it's not free energy, but it's still. Anyway, okay. So your question is, I'm sorry, what is your question now?
So
Oh, the new
even
tech.
things with tech like Elon Musk, I mean, they're serving this stuff up, like it's going to help. Like even the chip in the brain that Elon Musk is a
Link.
proponent of,
Mm.
and he's basically serving it up like, this can help different disease states and things of that nature. But I mean, in my mind, this is basically more control.
Yeah, so I've got something on Elon Musk in my book. I wrote about him. So the Neuralink technology is part of NeuroCore, and NeuroCore is a subcontractor under Monarch. And as soon as you use any of that NeuroCore even one time, you expose yourself to the femtonites, and you get biobots put into your body. So I think the current form of the Neuralink is just like an EEG you put on your head, but
Mhm.
just even having that thing touch you, you get infected. So yeah, unfortunately, um, I highly recommend not to get Elon Musk's Neuralink for future reference.
Yes. Okay, good to know. That's great that you touched upon that, because I think a lot of people are under this influence that he has for some reason, and they're thinking, "Oh, this could help." No, it's not going to help. It's going to harm, actually. What were some of your holy crap moments that you discovered as you were doing this documentary?
Changes on the horizon. Yes. Well, I think the 9/11 part where because I mean, not always believe, and there was a point where when I became aware, I guess when I watched the Loose Change documentary, that 9/11 was an inside job. Um, when I was reading about the reason why they took World Trade Center down, and it's because they were trying to stop the banking computers and the White Knights and the Office of Naval Investigations at the Pentagon. So, the cabal is not going to go out and necessarily just try to destroy a building just for some symbolic reason. There has to be a really major reason why, and so to me that's what made sense. I mean, I don't even know if I can confirm it's true because it was just passed on to me from the Dove of Oneness and from her research, but I'm just repeating what she's done. So, so that was an interesting aha moment. So what else in that documentary? Also, learning how we're all corporate slaves. The United States is a corporation. The original republic has defunct and it's been taken over by a corporation, which is masquerading as the republic. And that's why you have no rights. If you go to court, that's all admiralty law under law of the high seas. And they did that under the Organic Act of 1871, which extended the power of the power of the District of Columbia, the power of the federal government outside the District of Columbia, because initially it was supposed to be restricted under a wartime martial law scenario, law of the federal government, because the federal government's not supposed to have power in the states. So that's how they were able to do it through the Civil War and put us under military martial law. So
And
that
then
was
we
also,
become an enemy of the state, is what
yeah,
you're.
enemy combatants, and they always keep trying to promote wars so that the United States always has a reason to imprison people. And Trump is the first president in I don't know how many years it's been since 100 years maybe since we last had a president that did not declare war on anyone. I'm not sure if you're aware of that. So he has not declared any wars on anyone else. Um, what else in there? Of course, the Nassar Act on how the banks, how corrupt they were, how they would just try to cheat people out of their mortgages. They were trying to take people's properties. Like that one stipulation for these farmers, they basically stated that in the event of the owner's death, that the bank would take over the property. So I don't, that seems pretty outrageous that they could do that, but they were putting these stipulations in their contract, and some of these farmers weren't reading it, and so that's where it created a lot of fraud. Um, and I believe a lot of this fraud, at least with the mortgages, is still going on today, because I have friends who've been foreclosed on, and I hear the nightmare stories because they're trying to have standing in the courts, and the courts won't hear them. And the banks can't prove that they own the property because it's all been combined into the mortgage-backed securities. They cut up the little pieces of the mortgages and throw it into a larger pile with other mortgages, and so nobody really knows who owns what. And then the junk debt buyer buys up these claims, and then they sue for the property, but they never even had any title and begin with, so they're making enormous amount the attorneys. The whole thing is just a giant scam, and unfortunately, that's when what our founding fathers wanted to make sure that didn't happen. Were a bunch of parasites trying to take over our land and property, but it did. Unfortunately, it got to that point. But I think a lot of this is going to change, and we're going to see that, I think, in the next year or two once Trump gets back into office.
So, Nasara, okay. One of the things that I think is interesting is the social climate and the attitude about NESARA. I think it can be dangerous though when people are waiting for NESARA. I mean, I think it's great that it's on the horizon, and we're anxious for it to come. However, when people are waiting and they're not you know doing things that can help themselves, I think that can be a dangerous place to be. What are your thoughts on that?
Mhm. All right. So as far as what, I don't think Nassau is going to happen the way, I mean, they initially wanted to do a cold turkey back in 2001, announced to the public, and bam, we're here. But it's been delayed and stopped so many times. I think they've decided now to do a slow version of it all. And I don't necessarily think the RV, the revaluation of the currencies, is going to be what people think. For starters, it'll be extremely hyperinflationary just to hand a bunch of people trillions of dollars. I think the key is to get people replicator technology, free energy, and of course, replicators, the food replicators, so they can produce whatever they want. And at that point, money becomes obsolete. So sure, they can give everybody $1 trillion or whatever, if you have the Zim notes or whatever. But how much you're actually going to be able to buy, it won't really matter, because we have robotics, we'll have AI, we can 3D replicate whole cities. So in the future, the whole monetary system as we know it is going away. It's dissolving. We're already starting to see that right now. It's just begun. Obviously, if you've looked into student loans, the interest rates on them have already been stopped. Still some people are, paying them, but the next thing that's going to happen is eventually credit card. I've heard of this next year, credit cards are going to be going away. And then in 2022, mortgages will finally be cleared out, and then we'll get rid of all the debts roughly around 2022 to 2024. But we're not going to see the NESARA like it was initially created, in my opinion. And certainly we should not be complacent and think that, everything's going to be taken care of. We should plan for the future. I mean, if you've got some ideas and projects, write them down, put them, come up with a business plan, because if you're a visionary and you have a project in the future, there'll be so much abundance, so much resources, because of the replicator technology and the people that did get payout through NESARA or whatever it's going to be called in the end. There'll be plenty of money for grants and programs to do whatever. If you got a great project, yeah. So now's the time to visualize a future that you want, and that's what I think the T's, the positive ones, anyone want us to do, is to stay focused on the future that we want to create.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's beautiful. Well put. So as far as more tech type of talk, chips. Okay. I mean, you have over in, I believe it was Norway, basically the Scandinavian countries, they were having what they call chip parties, where they were like celebrating, like, oh, let's put a chip in our hand. So, we can go to the vending machine and just like put our hand right there, and, it can come out. It was kind of crazy. I mean, this is where I feel like the cabal wants to go. Do you know anything about that?
I've not heard about these chip parties. Like what kind of chips?
Basically, they put this little chip like right here, and I mean, people can get into work. They don't need a fob, they don't need like their little whatever key code or anything. They can get into apartments. They can use vending machines. They can, instead of like Apple Pay, they just have a chip,
Okay.
to purchase
All right.
things.
Yeah. So my comment on this is, that's clearly cabal relate. First of all, the more advanced planetary corporations and SSP groups use femtotech. So if you get a vaccine, or even if you maybe eat food at McDonald's or one of these cabal corporations, don't drink any Coca-Cola, obviously. You're going to be, which apparently has black goo in it.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, definitely not drink a Diet Coke either. But so yeah, as long as you're most of us are already laced with chips. Now, as far as that type of chip, I mean, that's clearly a cabal related. Um, they may have an agenda on hand where they want to create the new world order and so on, have their own one world monetary supply, maybe a cryptocurrency like Libra or something. Um, I don't think that agenda is going to work out in the long term, because first of all, chips can be reprogrammed and they can be replicated. So a chip isn't going to be full safe security. What will be is your DNA, your own physical DNA. So, or even maybe your astral body. So there might be in the future, we'll have computers that can take photographs of your aura, and that bioresonance signature is unique only to you and can't be replicated, because obviously they could clone you and try to break into some laboratory or some bank account using your clone. But so there are going to be like things like this in the future are going to be part of our conscious. Actually, I don't think bank accounts are not going to be an issue in the future, but I'm just using that, yeah, for security reasons. Yeah, there's a lot better ways of going about it than just a chip. So yeah, and I certainly don't recommend anybody put anything into their body like that, especially.
Right. No, I agree. Absolutely. 100%. Let's talk about vaccinations. Let's move to that. So, I mean, right now it's like the prequel to vaccinations is this push for, uh, flu shots, of course. And we know flu shots, you never can be 100% because it's always a different strain anyway. So, I mean, how effective are they? Not really. So let's talk about that. What are your thoughts on the vaccine for this
Well,
COVID?
yeah, the squalene oil, which causes autism, because well, it's connected to autism. People who are genetically predisposed can be damaged by it, because it creates an autoimmune cascade by putting this stuff into your body. That's just one of the ingredients. I mean, there's formaldehyde in there, and some of them. Some of it has, of course, the mercury, the thermosol. So, and then in Japan, their vaccines do not contain mercury, and so the amount of autism is much lower in Japan. So if you are, for instance, if you're a nurse and you really love your job and they're forcing you to get a vaccine, you can possibly take a vacation to Japan, get vaccinated there, and then you would be yeah, qualify for the of being vaccinated. So there's ways of getting around it. Obviously, I mean, they had mandatory vaccinations going on in California, which to me is outrageous.
Yeah.
We should have, here's the thing. Um, I don't want to necessarily say Democrats, but a lot of people in the Democrat Party believe in pro-choice. Like women should have the right to choose their own baby, to abort their child. So it's great that we have our own pro-choice, but why is it that the Democrat Party thinks that we should have mandatory vaccinations? That's not pro-choice. So shouldn't we choose what we want to have in our own body too?
That's a good
So
point.
yeah, there's a lot of hypocrisy going on, and the reason, of course, is they want to get the aborted fetuses so they can experiment on them in the underground bases. For that's why they want the abortion. But as far as vaccinations are concerned, yeah, there's a lot of planetary corporations. They got their hands and putting their garbage in there, the femto tech. So yeah, and that agenda needs to come to end. And I think once the medbed technology comes out, I've been told that it's going to be this year. I mean, Trump actually hinted that by July of 2021, 95% of the hospitals or the functionality of hospitals are going to be going out of business. So it's going to be extremely rapid once we get into 2021. So we're definitely on a positive timeline, and
Wow.
the pharmaceutical companies are going to be going out of business. And did you say you worked at Merck?
So I used to work for Eli Lilly. Okay,
Okay.
so I have worked for the enemy in more than one instance, okay? Not only mainstream media was I an anchor reporter for many, many years, but also Eli Lilly. I was a pharmaceutical sales rep. So I had the neuroscience portfolio. And I'm telling you, every time I worked for those organizations, I just felt deep inside my heart, I am working for the enemy right now. And my last stint was at the NBC in Oregon, and I ended up getting extremely sick.
Mhm.
Extremely sick. I felt like the universe was basically saying, okay, you need to exit now. And I just tried to shed as much light as I could while I was in there. And I had the opportunity to do these pieces on the side called Acts of Kindness. So I would try to do as much light work as I could, but it just, it's a swamp. It's a swamp for sure. So um,
Mhm.
getting back to vaccinations, they have apparently these RNA vaccinations that are coming out associated with Bill Gates and this patent that he had on this vaccine long, long ago, 060606, which I think is pretty fascinating. Like, what's that all about, you know? And there's two doctors that I know of, I've been following, who have been, you know, sounding the alarm on these things for months now. One is Dr. Carrie Madej, Madej, and she is a doctor who's just like, do not get this COVID vaccination. And the other is Christiane Northrup. So both of them are just like, you know, really do your research on this. And, you know, of course, there's people who are just like laughing at people like James and I, saying, oh my gosh, you conspiracy theorists, I can't believe you. And, you know, you guys are basically, you're harming humanity by, you know, putting these conspiracy theories out there. Like, no, how about you look into this stuff, really? Because we're putting this information out there for a reason. And how about be open-minded and take an alternative point of view? And like James is just saying, you know, there's a lot of hypocrisy going on, because if you're saying, you know, you're pro-choice, but then you're not going to be pro-choice about only a certain, you know, thing, like, okay, we're going to be pro-choice about abortion, but we're not going to be pro-choice about vaccinations. You know, that is hypocrisy as far as I'm concerned. So it's really interesting to me.
Mhm.
Um, as far as anything else, though, before we move on, about the vaccinations, James, that you have to say?
Well, the only thing I had about COVID, it was that it was originally created by Umbrella Corporation, and they got the virus from off-world. They're making it, engineering it on Mars, and they were combining it with femto technology, and I think there was SARS, MERS, and some form of encephalitis, and maybe even tuberculosis, I read as well. But they created about 130 different strands, and these were all supposed to be released because obviously the different strands attack different people of different genetic makeup. But we've had other groups who are sabotaging them to stop it, the release of this, the different types of strands. So that's why we haven't seen the massive amounts of death that they were planning. Initially, at least 15 million people they were planning to kill.
Wow.
I'm not sure if that's worldwide or the U.S., but the certain negative groups in the Illuminati want to see 70% of the world 70% of the population be exterminated. So that agenda has come to an end as far as Bill and Melinda Gates. They were working with DARPA, who was working with alongside of Umbrella Corporation. Umbrella is giving the technology to DARPA. They subcontract to them. And as far as I really feel like Bill and Melinda Gates, they're going to be brought to justice for what they've done, and it won't be much longer too, because you know a lot of the pharmaceutical companies are going to be going out of business.
Hmm.
I really, and I was actually, I heard, or maybe it was Yustava, the psychic. She does some readings. She's got a excellent accuracy history. She says that that Trump is going to have kits of the hydroxychloroquine. Is that what I
Yeah.
said?
Yeah,
Gotta
I know
get,
what you're talking about.
yeah. So
Hydroxychloroquine. Yeah.
yeah, the HCQ along with zinc. So for a
Uh-huh.
dollar fifty, you can go to a CVS or a local drugstore, pay a dollar 50. You get a little kit of this stuff. You could take it. And the HCQ, what that actually does, it prevents the biobots from attaching to your blood vessels, and it's an anti-malaria medication. But it's been around for at least I thought 70 years, if I'm not mistaken, something like that. So it's entirely safe. There's what was it, the FDA does not allow it to be used to
Right.
treat COVID unless it's for experimental reasons. But so that's all going to be changing soon. And I think what they wanted was obviously they wanted the COVID to come out so that it would destroy the economy, so Trump's economy, and then they would have an excuse to have mail-in ballots, which they would try to um, yeah make sure to come out in favor of Biden. So it looks like they're playing along with their agenda. Trump has allowed them to have everything in play, but there's been other counter plays that we haven't seen yet that's about to be put into action. And by December 18th, we will know, because there's supposed to be an audit done on the election, and we're going to find out a lot of the corruption that's going to take place, and Trump will be our next president.
Wow. I know. I was just going to ask you about the election. So thank you for commenting on that. So my take, I was actually talking to Anthony Zinder about this, because I was like, I am seeing two timelines just like dancing, with each other. And I just feel like it's humanity and humanity's consciousness that's going to tip the scales. But I was like, I feel like the outcome with Trump has already been known, Project Looking Glass, everybody knows that that's already happened, but the cabal knows. And so they were trying to, intervene with that and have this whole plan with basically Kamala Harris, positioned to be the first woman president, Biden not being in that long. And the thing is, like you're
Nancy
talking about,
Pelosi.
or yeah, Nancy Pelosi. The thing is that there's going to be these legalities that are going to have to come to light, and that's going to take a while. And then also the crimes against humanity and everything else that's going to come out, like you're talking about, December 18th. So there's still a lot to come forward.
Okay, so there was an executive order. This is right during the middle of all the Russian collusion. Trump signed an executive order that basically requires an audit done on the election to confirm that there has been no meddling of any foreign power. And so that executive order was handed over to the Department of Homeland Security is in charge of that. And and Trump is not allowed to know what they were going to do. So we only found out just recently through rumor mill, but I obviously I can't confirm this is the case. But Charlie Ward has been talking about this the quantum financial system, but more particular, the blockchain and connected to the ballots. So the story is that some of the, I don't know if it was all ballots or just the mail-in ballots, but some of these ballots were laced with non-radioactive isotopes, which can be tracked to a blockchain. So they know which ballots are real and which ballots are fake. Prior to the elections, the National Guard was activated into 12 states, and their goal was to, and obviously most of these are swing states. I mean, one of them was Kentucky, one was Illinois. We both know, what states those states usually go for. So they wanted to get like a sample of what's really going on here. So not the rumor, but the information that I read so far was that half of these ballots they're going to Biden are fake. So yeah, whether or not he really did. I mean, the vote total shows that Biden received more votes than any president in the history of this country. And if you just look at his rallies, only 12 people would show up, and Trump, he gets 30,000 people. It doesn't make any sense. So the timelines actually showed a 35% probability that this country would go into civil war. And I'm actually very concerned right now that we could still head into that timeline. So I think the listeners of the show, whoever, whoever this goes out to, if you meditate, if you pray, you should just visualize a reality. I'm not saying necessarily Trump should win, but well, obviously I guess I am, but I'm saying that, visualize a reality that we don't have civil war. How about that?
Yeah, that's fair. Absolutely. And thank you all for just being in the heart space as well. I would invite you to, take the head space down to the heart space. And like James said, invite you to meditate on a positive timeline, because we can create our own reality. And that's out there for the taking, for all of us to enjoy. So
the only other thing I want to add to that is that, according to that executive order that passed in 2018, after the audit takes place, which is 45 days, so 45 takes us to December, roughly around December 18th. It's sent over to the Supreme Court for them to finally make an approval decision. So that's why Trump was trying to get all of his people onto the Supreme Court prior to the election. So he knows that this plan has already been put into place. The Democrats have been baited. I would say not all Democrats are like this. I'm just saying the more extreme ones that want to cheat so they've all been baited. And once the truth gets made known that what happened, then there's going to be investigations brought against the tech giants for collusion. For vote tampering, because they deleted QAnon posters. Channels that were exposing corruption. They even deleted some tweets from the president complaining about vote fraud. So they are complicit in election meddling. So they're probably going to. I've been hearing that they're going to be broken up, and also the news media is going to be investigated, because they picked Biden as the candidate when the election hasn't been finished. The vote counting isn't done yet, but they're giving it to Biden. So they're going to be investigated and most likely be torn apart for their corruption. So it's all coming down for them. This is their last stand. It's going to be a really exciting time in the next 6 months.
absolutely. I mean, the power structures are falling. The fact that all the major networks in mainstream media are saying that Biden has won, it's crazy to me, without going over like the total counts, without having the legalities looked at with everything like James has talked about. It's just, that to me is absurd. So, and so unfair. So that's just wild. Now, getting to Project Lazarus real quick. So for the next phase, do you think that will come to fruition? So for instance, some people who may think they're in some of these super soldier projects, what do you think is in store for them in the coming months and years, perhaps associated with Project Lazarus?
I'm sorry, can you please, what's Project Lazarus in your definition?
So what my understanding is of that is there could be a time when super soldiers are activated, and there might be staging areas that these super soldiers go to and find out, okay, you really are so-and-so, you're so-and-so, we need you to do this, 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 and this. Here's your mission now, right now.
So they're going to be activated for what? The positive guys?
Yes.
Well, as long as it's consenting, I suppose. I mean, what I've been hearing is that if they were activated, it would be like in a martial law scenario where the New World Order was trying to be enacted. In that particular case, a lot of people who are sleeper super soldiers would be taken to FEMA camps, and they would be given the poison food, because the water and the food in the FEMA camps is laced with poison to kill the people there. And then what's going to happen is that all the people around them are going to die except for them. And then they're going to get activated as a super soldier. And then they're going to have a bunch of activated super soldiers in these FEMA camps who are absolutely going to go destroy the people who are doing this. So it's going to be, yeah. So in that case, but I mean, the Earth Defense Force is working with the Black Ops in Lincoln Clay, and they've got a plan in place too of creating clone super soldiers in the case of a martial law scenario. So I don't necessarily, I mean, I was told even like, let's see, it was Cynthia what was her name? Cynthia Crawford. She was a UFO experiencer who came on my show. I mean, she died of cancer, I think in 2017. She talked about how there was going to be civil war, martial law, and the super soldiers are going to be activated, and that there'll be communities we can go to. So I think that's going to be with the negative timeline. I'm hoping that that's not going to be here because I don't want to have to eat beetles behind the bark of a tree to get protein.
Yeah, exactly.
Make a soup made from grass. So let's focus on a positive timeline here, and whether or not it's going to be through Project Lazarus, or we're going to get our memories back through the galactic. I guess as we're going through the galactic energies coming in through the fifth dimension, supposedly through the galactic central sun.
Mm-hmm.
That's supposed to happen roughly around 2023 to
Okay.
2026. Most super soldiers, yeah, we're all going to be faced with these energies, but they're very positive energies. If you're a positive person, you're going to be fine. If you're negative, you're not going to be so well. But anyway, does that answer your question?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, so basically what we put out in resonance and from whatever's within us is going to return to us. So I would stay in alignment with the highest iterations of yourself and your divine creator as well. Whatever you think that is, the universe, God, Archangel Michael, whoever your guides are. But yeah, and then meditate on the timeline that you want to create that's positive. So James, this has been so fun and so amazing, and you have so much wisdom, and the experiences that you have had, although a lot of it has been so traumatic, you have had some insights that really help so many of us. So thank you so much. Anything else you'd like to add, or any intel that you've received that may help us?
Help us. I think everything's going to be fine. Even though it seems like every time there's a prediction of a negative timeline, it never comes into fruition. So I really think everything is going to be, my friend, he could channel the Palladians, and he just got a download recently. He said, everything's going to work out just fine. If you're burdened down with debt, don't worry about it. It's all going to be going away really soon. New technologies are going to come online. I don't necessarily say that there'll be an RV, but there'll be provisions made for light workers to work on their projects. So the future is going to be a fun, amazing place. Don't necessarily focus on the propaganda of the news media. Actually, that's one of the messages was don't even pay attention to the news media because but everything's going to work out fine, and you'll soon see. So
That's amazing. I love it. I like that timeline.
yeah.
Let's all have that unfold.
Okay, so if you like to learn more about the work I do, go to supersoldiertalk.com. That'll take you to my YouTube channel. It's also Super Soldier Talk on YouTube. But also visit neologicaltech.com. You can get my book, and I have a NeoCube. A NeoCube right behind me over here.
Yes.
So, this is the Zen Master. Here you can see that.
That's so cool. Tell us a little bit about that, because it's a chi energizer, right?
Times that's happened. Okay, the chi energizer. So the inside of the cube has these pyramids, and I fill this up with orgone energy. I put like different resins in here. They're organic resins, but crystals are in here, and then on each side of the wall of the box are these pyramids. There's 6 pyramids, and the sphere is in the center inside here. So the sphere contains crystal. Well, this one contains a crystal sphere, and then there's other little crystal powders. So I took not this particular cube, but I took one of them with me to Vegas to present, and then TSA, they wanted to open it up, and they're like, "Well, what is it?" It says meditation cube right on there, and then they kept testing it. They thought it was a bomb, and they wouldn't let me bring it on the plane.
Oh my
So
gosh.
yeah, and by the way, the airline industry, that's going away too, with teleportation technology, 2024. So TSA, all that stuff's going away. We're all going to be set free. But anyway, go check neologicaltech.com if you want to learn about the NeoCubes. I also got some free meditations on there. I did some of those back in the day, a couple of
Oh,
years.
that's so cool. So, okay, tell me, how did you come up with the chi energizer? I mean, like, did you dream about it? Was it through a
Oh, no.
meditation?
I give credit to Kusal Uch. I was working with him on a team, and he had some really amazing ideas. And then I just compounded upon it, and I worked with some engineers. I designed the actual appearance of the outside of the box, and I came up with the graphics design and with his help. So we worked on a team approach, and then since then we've had a little friends divorce, and sometimes we come back, and he's been on my show a couple of times, but Kusal is kind of an interesting person to work with, and I'm gonna just leave it at that. But I do give him credit and for helping me out, and thank you, Kusal, if you happen to listen to this. Yeah, so but he channeled that device from the ETs. So there's but yeah,
Which
it's
ETs, do you know?
the Guardians of the Galactic Federation. They're a mix of Syrians, tall grays, Palladians. And the reason why they gave this technology to humanity is because we've been interfered with due to mind control and brainwashing. They wanted to create an alternative using sacred geometry to allow you to kind of break free some of that. And it's a very low tech version of the more advanced technology that they have. I mean, sacred geometry, just shape power. That's all it basically is. So, but anyhow.
So what have the results been as you've used it, or some of the other people that you know have used it?
Well, typically it just helps stabilize your mood, stabilize your emotions, helps increase synchronicities, um, and it helps bring more chi energy into your body so you can manifest a little bit better. I mean, if you're already good at with the law of magnetism, not law of attraction. Law of attraction is that's people trying to sell you a product. And I'm going to leave it at that. But the way it really works is you have to magnetize yourself with whatever reality that you want to attract to yourself. So if you want to, I hate to say be rich. I mean, I don't, some people, I guess, want to be that, but you have to go out and do the work yourself, learn what it takes. And then once you learn what it takes, you're probably not going to want, maybe you will, I don't know. But or it could be something simple like attract a new partner or life. So then you have to magnetize yourself to be open to receiving a partner, not just say, well, I want to win the lottery. So like, the law of attraction people, they're like, well, I'm going to just accept the reality that it's all mine. I mean, so you are magnetizing. So you're magnetizing, but the problem is everybody else is magnetizing themselves with that. Everybody who buys that lottery ticket is wanting the same thing. So ultimately who wins? An AI wins because our whole reality is controlled by AI, and those lotteries are all manipulated by AI. So the AI determines where that money's going, but you can still hack the grid through other ways by getting downloads through your higher self, your guardian angels and guides, which usually are supposed to be out there helping you. Sometimes they don't, and I have a problem with that. But whatever, I'm not going to comment too much about that. But ultimately, you can magnetize the reality that you want to manifest by becoming it yourself.
Beautiful. I love it. Well, we will definitely not only watch Super Soldier Talk, but we will have this on Guided. I will be downloading it soon and we'll premiere it. And I'm so excited for everybody to listen to this interview so much. This is chock full of information. I love it. And then if you want to learn more about James, I'll have it all in the description. So thank you so much for coming on Guided, James.
Thank you, Jodi. I appreciate it. Thank you for inviting me. And thank you, listeners, for listening too. Mhm.
Absolutely. Okay, I'll talk to you soon, James. Have a great rest of your night.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.